2018. Holy shit. For the last couple of years, I have ended up sitting down at the end of December to try and coalesce my thoughts, to hopefully come up with 10 solid recommendations from those particular years. Usually, filling out those 10 spots was a bit of a struggle, but I enjoyed the opportunity because I got to highlight some of the lesser-known anime that people don't talk about all that much. This year, I sat down and I had at least 18 titles on a list before I stopped to check and see how many I had. Like, 2018 has been far and away one of the best years, period, best ever, period, whatever, of anime that we have had in a long time. If 2017 was the year of niche shows that I could recommend to a select few people, 2018 is the year where I can just slap down a bunch of anime in a pile next to you and be like, here you go. Here's your watch list for like the next months. In the winter season alone at the start of the year, we had at least half as many good shows as we did for all of 2017. And I've been following more shows this past season than almost any other season in the last couple of years for just how many stood out. Needless to say that this video, this one right here, has not been easy to compile. What was originally supposed to be just a top 10 list has turned into a straight top list. No number, no ranking, just pure awesomeness as I try to summarize the greatness that aired in this year of 2018. If you have not seen a list video of mine before, here's how it's going to go. Every show I mention here is not ranked. I usually say that I'll leave the best for last, but for 2018, that cannot be done. I will be awarding a best of year at the end of this video. But since it is understandably difficult, I will be mentioning all of the shows in question first before actually presenting that award. Of course, I will only be discussing shows that I have seen in 2018. I never did get around to shows like Planet With, Banana Fish, or Gridman, despite people badgering me constantly to finally sit down and watch them. I still haven't made it to part 5 of JoJo, so that's why it's absent, and I somehow completely avoided the meme-driven mess that was Pop Team Epic. Though honestly, I've probably seen like 80% of that show on my Twitter feed alone. Also, beyond this sentence, you will see high no hair of shows like Black Clover, Attack on Titan, and My Hero Academia. To be clear, this is not because they are undeserving of mention or praise, but since their mere existence will dominate a good number of other top lists and yearly awards from other people, I am choosing to give up their spotlight in this video for some others that you might not have noticed otherwise. Plus, I shouldn't have to tell you that those shows are worth checking out at this point, should I? Nah, didn't think so. So, without out of the way and with a decent chunk of anime to discuss ahead of us, let's get started. Because ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and today on Glass Reflection we will be discussing the very best anime from 2018. You ready? Let's jam.
Let's start with the one that I've talked about most recently, as it's fresh in my mind. A Place Further Than the Universe is a show that seems to top most people's list for best of year, at least from many people who I've talked to, and for good reason. It's an entirely wholesome, if in some ways grim, take about a group of girls doing their best to somehow, some way, make it to the cold reaches of Antarctica. Their tale of friendship is what makes the series memorable. Their hardships, the challenges, and what they end up doing to overcome it all makes it a standout series from the year. It is a show that legitimately looked at all of the challenges of placing our cast into Antarctica, and it did its best to realistically explain the possible ways for them to get there, and what that experience might be like. Pretty much every series that I talk about in this video today is worth watching, but this one, in particular, is worth a gander. I'm deeply saddened that this show was not longer than it was, because it really deserved to be a 2-core, but hey, what can you do? Next up is Comic Girls. This is one that I regret not talking about when it came out, mostly because no one seemed to do so, and it deserved a lot of love. It follows a young, 15-year-old manga creator struggling with her art and what she wants to do with it. To hell, her editor suggests that she move into an all-female manga artist dormitory, and the fellow artists she meets there and lives with try to help her discover her own voice and artistic style. This is a series with a well-balanced mix of what all of these artists of different genres face in both their lives and their careers, and it really does drive home that making this kind of entertainment is not an easy thing. Though sometimes the show did make me scratch my head when it tried to portray just how bad Moita had gotten with her art. Bad enough that I had to seriously question how she got published in the first place. But her artistic anxiety about her work was on a fully relatable level, so for someone who really does take pleasure in watching these lesser-known slice of life shows, it hit it out of the park with me. Apparently, people in Missouri might agree. Violet Evergarden. This one feels weird for me to put on this list because I first watched it back in the summer of 2017 when they premiered its first episode at AX, but ever since that time, Violet Evergarden has enraptured my attention with its outstanding animation from Kyoto Annie, beautiful soundtrack by Evan Call, and breathtaking storytelling that has had me wanting more ever since the series stopped airing. Evergarden takes a new stab at a kind of character archetype made popular by Evangelion and Rei Ayanami all those years ago, and it makes this new character, Violet, both one of the most human with her emotions and also one of the most machine-like with her hands and skills. The way that the show was able to weave its episodic narratives each week was a delight to watch, and it also contains one of the best single episodes of the year. Thankfully able to be watched and enjoyed with very little prep as it's not connected to Evergarden's main storyline. There have been rumors floating around for a while about a potential second season, and considering how much Kyoto Annie put into this series, I'd like to hope that it will eventually come out for us, but until then, well, I'll just have to watch it again and again. Hina Matsuri is another series I regret sleeping on as far as making a video for it, because from its season, it was one of the shows that I watched religiously every day a new episode came out. It's about this alien-like girl with superpowers named Hina, who crash lands into the apartment of a leading Yakuza member, Nita. Nita, now fearing for his prized antique collection and other valuables that Hina threatens to break, as well as seeing her usefulness in his job, begrudgingly takes her in. But that doesn't really explain what the show is about. That's just how it started. Nita is not the kind of guy you think of when the term Yakuza pops up, nor is anyone he works with. We assume shady stuff is probably happening behind the scenes, but the show never focuses on that. Instead, it shows a very irregular family, and combines that with some of the most absurd humor of the year. This was a series that was both heartwarming and hilarious, with most of its cast deserving of their own show, or at least arc. Like, seriously, can we get an Anzu spinoff? I'd love that. Okay, thanks much. Oh, what a beautiful mess Darling in the Franxx was. Despite that, though, I can't hate it. I love too much of it to join the numerous amounts of people who bemoan this show's existence and what it did during its run. Yes, Franxx has a lot of problems, mostly involving its final arc, and for some people, the middle bit, getting so enraged that some people threatened the animators over it, but personally, I only ever found the show's ending to be rather lackluster, at least until the final moments. If I was to ignore those last few episodes, the series would be much more memorable for me. Hell, I'd have it as a contender for Best of Year. But even though I'm not gonna go that far because of the show's problems, its takes on puberty and physical/emotional development of characters was extremely well done, all wrapped up in some stellar action scenes to make this series a definite highlight of the year, even if not everybody enjoyed it as much as I apparently did. Megalobox is a few things. It's the holder of arguably the best soundtrack of the year, depending on your tastes. I know Evergarden comes close, but hey, this is a damn good contender. And for otaku like myself, it is also a worthy successor to the 1970s anime Ashita no Joe. Megalobox takes the old tried-and-true formula of a boxer down on his luck and combines that with stylistic choices reminiscent of Samurai Champloo and Redline, create this stunning wonder that is visually impactful. The narrative is not the reason why you watch this show. It's not all that groundbreaking in and of itself, but oh man, can it lean into its own hype. Just have our main man Joe gear up for any bout and yes, you got yourself some quality entertainment here. You don't even need to know jack about Ashita no Joe to get into this series, which is great, because accessibility could have been a big problem with it. But in the end, it is a sports anime, and your own enjoyment will largely depend on how excited for this sport the series can make you. For me, it did a stellar job, but it might not be for everyone. Yuru Camp. This one caught me by surprise when I first started watching it. I turned it on because it was supposed to be the cute new slice of life for the season, which, I tend to enjoy. So I sat down enjoying my lunch of cup noodles and began to watch, only for the episode to proceed with the characters themselves having cup noodles. I never before felt like an anime was specifically catering to me personally more than I did in that moment. But Layback Camp is not a series with some grand plan. The girls were not trying to better themselves at manga like with comic girls, nor were they on some expedition to the Antarctic. The series was more like just, hey, we like camping. Join us, would you? And so we did. Few shows have the ability to pull off so much with so little. All of the girls are unique enough not to feel trite and overused, but also not so out there to feel unrelatable or, heaven forbid, uninteresting. There were several shows that fall under the banner of Iyashikei or healing anime this year, but considering how many times I ended up rewatching Layback Camp for that specific kind of feeling, this one was far better than most. That time, I was reincarnated as a slime. Now, at the time of this video, slime has not completed its run. While normally that would disqualify it from being mentioned here, I could not skip over it because of how freaking entertaining the series has been so far. Few shows have made me decide to rewatch it several times in both languages while it is still airing because I am so desperate for the next episode, and Slime has achieved this. It is a breath of fresh air for the isekai genre that all too often has come to lean in on the same old tried and true tropes before eventually becoming a quasi-harem series. Slime has yet to do that, for which I am eternally grateful. The only problem that Slime has is how quickly every episode goes by. Its pacing is whacked in the head, which will only be a detriment while the series is still airing. Having to pump the brakes on the story after every 20 minutes because the episode is over with has never been this difficult for me all year. And it's really my only major problem I have, at the moment at least. Perhaps it'll get worse by the end, but for now, it has been one of my favorite shows to round out this year. Bloom Into You is the best romance series of this year for me. And honestly, I could see the argument being made that it's not even a romance series at all, in some respects. Saying something is a romance series has particular connotations to it that I don't think apply here. This is not the story of a character that falls in love with someone and then pines over them, hoping that they will reciprocate. Or maybe it is, just from a different point of view. In Bloom Into You, our protagonist Yu is stuck on the wrong side of a one-sided romance with the student council president, and she herself has zero idea how she feels about it. The series is about her challenging her own conceptions about love and romance and desperately trying to sort out her own feelings while also dealing with the advances of her senpai. This is the kind of story that I have yet to really see be told in this way, and with luck, the series won't be the last. But if it is, man, this one's been a good one. A standout from earlier the year, Aggretsuko is a showcase of the modern troubles of working a desk job in Japan. Despite the culture swap between Tokyo and the Western world, the struggles of this young red panda resonates with everyone who has held a similar position and dealt with things like shitty bosses, gossiping coworkers, and almost every day being more horrible than the last. Considering that she's a Sanrio character and the company has historically been very careful about the nature of their content and characters, Aggretsuko has gone far beyond a simple marketing ploy. And this short 2.5 hours worth of a heavy metal singing panda is a wonderful experience that I would highly recommend to anyone who has worked in these industries at all. You will enjoy this. I promise. After that, of course, you can go and check out an even shorter series called Skullfaced bookseller Honda-san. Honda-san is to retail what Aggretsuko is to desk work. The only main difference is how they handle it. While Aggretsuko is the kind to bottle her feelings and let them explode out every night at a karaoke bar, Honda is much more timid and passive. He doesn't have any obvious outlet for his frustrations, but rather chooses to wallow in a pit of despair while on the clock, which is relatable in its own way. The only problem I have with Honda-san is that it's short, like real short. Each episode is only about 11-ish minutes long, which isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things. Perhaps we'll get another season down the line, but even if not, this has been an enlightening ride into the life of a retail worker from Japan.
Someday we'll find out the truth.
Goldin Kamuy is a series that's really hard to nail down. On the one hand, it's a fantastic adventure series about finding a map to a lost treasure, and the map happens to be tattooed onto the skin of a bunch of formerly death row inmates who escaped prison. On the other hand, the series is also part cooking series, part comedy, part murder mystery, and part whatever the hell this scene was about.
I can't control it anymore. I have to be free! Let's play sumo! Yes! Great idea!
Despite its genre-defying narrative, the series still manages to keep some level of cohesion about it, enough to be a fully enjoyable experience. The chemistry between the characters is so good to be worth watching for that alone, and honestly, I've reached the point with this series that I don't even care if they find the gold at the end of it. I really don't. I just don't want to see this show end, which is some of the highest praise I can think to give it. Everyone and their dog has referred to Cells at Work as Osmosis Jones the anime, including me, but most of that's because it's kinda true. The show is an educational look into the inner workings of the human body during various different kinds of invasions by bacteria and other viruses, starring anthropomorphized versions of bodily cells. For the most part, it's fairly accurate in its depictions of what goes on, if not exaggerated slightly for narrative effect. For what it is, it's an extremely fun Monster of the Week type show with some well-explained learning moments, all made by the same studio that gave us JoJo's Bizarre Adventure of all things. It has this charm to it that made me excited to see the further adventures of the red and white blood cells and how they would continue to work and live and complete their jobs. Definitely one that is worth your time, if for nothing else than to see some of the cutest characters of the year bravely completing their job, doing only what they can do. How do I sell you on Bunny Girl Senpai? Well, for some people, the title will be enough. Bunny girls are a rare breed, and this one is particularly well done. For others, I can say that this series is as close to a modern version of the same kind of wacky, mysterious happenings that made Haruhi popular all those years ago. And if either of those descriptions don't grab you, I can say that despite the circumstances of how or why the events of this show occur, the resulting development of its characters has been an absolute treat to watch. Don't believe me? Okay, well, go watch its first 3 episodes. Just that. Just its first 3. Those first 3 episodes are kind of a closed-loop story that really could just be a short film on its own, and as the first arc to this series, it does an extremely good job of showing us the world and how things work, while also displaying an amusing romance between our leads that I enjoyed watching every second of. Zombieland Saga. I have a love-hate relationship with idol shows. Generally speaking, I love the girls that the shows end up showcasing, but ultimately hate that most of what I watch is just a bunch of interconnected stories about the girls without really presenting a collective narrative. Or maybe that's just Idolmaster, I don't know. Zombieland Saga is mostly the best of both worlds, on top of having, one of the better OPs of the year. Bring back a bunch of skilled girls from the dead to join together and save the prefecture of Saga. It's not entirely clear on how zombie idols are going to help the situation in Saga, but giving these girls a second chance at life in a way and allowing them to have a happier continuation to their tragic ends was rather sweet, with most of the episodes focusing specifically on one girl at a time as the greater narrative gets told. Now if the show would just give us the backstories to Yugiri and Tae, you cowards. If I could get 1 second season, any show, this would be it. Because this one is the one that I feel the most bitter about leaving where it did.
So now that we have showcased each series individually, we need to talk about the best of year. Because it's a tie. I'm not gonna leave it at a tie, but I just want to stress how difficult it is to pick any of the shows mentioned here today as best of year over any of the others. All of these shows that I have talked about have their own unique, awesome quirks that made them memorable to me, made me excited to watch them, made me happy that I did. I have never had a harder year to give a best of Frosty to than this year of 2018. So let me tell you what the tie is. I have a tie between 4 anime this year. Yes, 4. And they are A Place Further Than the Universe, Violet Evergarden, Bloom Into You, and Layback Camp. Again, to be clear, all of these shows are certified frosty, and I would consider them to be the best of the year. But if you force me at gunpoint to pick my absolute favorite, well, I'd have to go with Layback Camp. From the very beginning of this year, this is a series that I have constantly gone back to for comfort and enjoyment. I have watched it in its entirety more times than I can count, and probably will do so even more as 2019 ramps up. Evergarden is more beautiful and has the best single episode of the year. Bloom Into You I found to be more relatable and has one of the best dubs of the year. A Place Further Than the Universe makes me feel things I cannot properly describe. But sometimes I don't need the best animation or relatable characters or to have my heart overflow. Sometimes I just need a warm drink and a calming view of Mount Fuji. And Layback Camp is the show that has that. There can be many favorites from 2018. It was an absolutely fantastic year, and you can have a different favorite than me and shout it from the rooftops. I will not begrudge you for doing that one bit. But this one is mine. So, with that done and with 2018 sadly over, I would like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you have sufficiently added enough shows to your watch list as 2019 kicks in and we get even more awesome anime to watch and enjoy. The new year has big shoes to fill, and with luck, it'll do it nicely. And I'll just be here making videos about them. And until then, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.